All right, and welcome on my next guest. We've got John Brickley, ESPN studio host. He does it all. John, is everything going?
Zach, man, everything's great, man. I'm telling you, sports cannot come soon enough, man. NBA, MLB, NHL, WNBA, it's all coming back.
Which one are you expecting the smoothest return?
Well, I was going to say the NBA, but because of kind of I don't want to use the term players revolt, but, you've got Avery Bradley and Kyrie Irving talking about boycotting Orlando. So I don't know. I still think the NBA will return. I mean, I've heard whispers that there could be a cancellation of the season, but I think for me, NHL probably might be the smoothest. The fact that they're looking at a couple of cities to, have all the players join in there, like Edmonton or Las Vegas. I think the plan's a little bit better on the NHL side. Major League Baseball, there's, to my gut feeling, going to be a curveball, no pun intended. But I do think with the recent outbreak of the coronavirus in the spring training facilities, I don't know. I'm glad that the Players Union and the owners came to an agreement, but I'll believe it when I see it. That's kind of what I'm thinking about with all these sports.
Speaking of hockey, since it's coming back soon, they really haven't said where it's going to be, and I kind of like that because they're not locking themselves down on one option. I feel like with NBA, they did everything right, except I don't think they have a plan B.
No, there is no plan B. I think it's Orlando or bust, and I think the problem now that the NBA is finding is you've got guys like Jokic, who just tested positive for coronavirus. You've got other individuals who are testing positive. And now we're seeing, Zach, a lot of these hot spots, Arizona, Florida, Texas, are seeing a rise in confirmed cases of coronavirus. So, again, I go back to what I said before. I'll believe it when I see it. I think the NBA has a good plan in place. But I do think there's a lot more bumps in the road than they anticipated prior to locking it down for that July 30th date.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't decided to close the park yet. Maybe Space Mountain needs people. I don't know. Maybe they got to make. I don't know. It's kind of.
I think everybody just wants a return to normalcy. To be honest,
it's like when you drive an old car. You got to do it twice a week. I think it's like the same thing with the roller coasters. Like they're getting rusty. We need people on.
Yeah, we need people on it. We need to return to normalcy. That's what I've said for a while.
And then before the NBA actually starts up, so we got TBT coming in a couple weeks. Are you excited? We got Fletcher McGee, Mike Dom, Joe Johnson. It's going to be electric.
So Joe Johnson, I've always loved Joe Johnson ever since he was drafted by the Celtics. I think that was one of the picks that I wish that they had held on to for a while. You know what I mean? But I'm excited to see Fletcher McGee, man. I saw this guy in person when he was at Wofford. I mean, this guy can rain threes from all sides of the court. And kind of the philosophy is now, I'll see anything. I'll take anything. We've gotten Top Rank Boxing has had a few bouts over the last couple of weeks. The PGA Tour, in fact, is in my backyard in Cromwell, Connecticut for the Travelers Championship, which I thought at one point we might not even have the Travelers based on 5 guys withdrawing based on either their caddies having it or, as we saw with Cameron Champ, he was a confirmed case of coronavirus. But TBT, I mean, you know what? I don't follow it as religiously as other people do, but I'm certainly excited just to see live sports back. There's no question about that.
I had an idea for a future sporting event, but so I have an idea for a future Thanksgiving event. They could do it before the first Thanksgiving game. So this is after Phil Rivers is long retired. So he's got him and his wife and their 9 kids. So that's one team. We got to find another former player with 9 kids, and they can square up in a flag football, and we just mic up.
Yeah, you could probably have Antonio Cromartie go up against Phillip Rivers. I think that would be that'd be
fantastic.
His family versus Rivers' family. That's a great idea.
Flag football, no contact. Everybody can play. I was thinking
as long as it's live. That's all I care about.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's like, God darn it, Nathan, go to the left. Come on.
No, that's great.
Yeah, but and then so TBT we got coming back. I know it's about 10 days. They're pretty quarantined in Columbus. Everybody, I know the people in the studio are at Indianapolis, not going to be interacting and all that. I think the people after the teams have played and been eliminated, they're leaving. I think they got a good thing going. And for baseball should have been back 6 weeks ago. They should have figured this stuff out 6 weeks ago. What were your thoughts on all the delayed negotiations and all the one side this way, one side that way? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that with the coronavirus, obviously safety was a priority, but I also think that a lot of this had to do with the players back in 2016 just got steamrolled with the collective bargaining agreement that the owners just dominated. And I think there's a lot more than just this pandemic that's going on. I think the players want a little bit more leverage. Remember, they wanted the prorated salary, but the owners wanted more games so that they can make more money off of it. I think Major League Baseball did a disservice just to themselves. I think the true colors were shown by Commissioner Manfred. I think that Tony Clark is not as tough as of a negotiator as I think the players union would like. I think in the end, though, 60 games, an extended postseason, I'm interested to see how this turns out, because now you think of teams that completely dominate. The Yankees, the Dodgers, they have a best shot. I still think, like Buster Olney predicted, I think the Rays could make a deep run, potentially win the World Series. But think about it like this, Zach. Your sport had the chance to be the trailblazer. Think about Major League Baseball. If they came back a little bit earlier, they would have had a full month of just baseball. And we know how difficult that sport has been to reach out to the youth movement. And it just shows money is about everything, and baseball is a business just like everything else. But in the end, I think that it's good that they got a season in. I'm interested to see specifically the DH now in the National League, and I think the most intriguing addition is going to be the runner at second to begin extra innings, because we both know that some of these games have gone into the 18th, 19th inning, and it is just a marathon that just will not end. So we'll see what happens, but it's just good to have baseball back.
Do you know if that at any point during negotiations, anybody brought up, okay, we want everyone on steroids, it's just 60 games?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, here's the problem. So the issue is you've got 22 new owners that weren't around for the strike in 94, right? And the biggest issue for them is, what are we going to do about this? And how are we going to perceive this to a fan base that, obviously fans are not allowed in the ballpark, but it's going to be a difficult challenge once fans are allowed to engage them in the sport once again. And this is not like 98 with McGuire and Sosa, post-steroid era. This is going to be tough because it's hard to fight over millions when there's a lot of people in this country that are unemployed based on this pandemic. They did a very poor job of handling this situation. No question about that.
Yeah. The one idea I've always had for years pre-pandemic is, I don't know if they'll ever implement it because it's probably illegal, but so I call it steroid September. This is the thing in the MLB can implement, and every September, one team, they just kind of mix in like some creatine or some type of steroid substance, and like one player in every team is like they're Wheaties, put in the Wheaties every day. And they don't know. The random player, you don't tell them. And all of a sudden, just one player's, their stats just spike. And they just get like lifting like crazy. And then maybe it could change the kind of like the wild card race. I don't know. It would be electric, and it just leads right into the postseason.
Zach, you have proven to me what happens to a guy that's been in quarantine for the last 3+ months. You have nothing but time on your hands. And unfortunately, I am not going to agree with that idea. You're not going to get me to bait on that one.
Yeah, I timed myself like week 2 into quarantine. I was just bored out of my mind. I timed myself cutting a grapefruit. I'm like, that was pretty quick. I wonder if we could bet on this. And I was like, no. It's been wild, and it's wild. And speaking of NFL, so a little bit later in July, training camps. Do you think that'll work out, or what are your thoughts on that?
NFL. Listen, they did a great job, as simple formed as it was with the draft. Yeah. I do think they're going to play. Now, whether or not it's in a bubble, whether or not it's a full season, I don't know, but it's the NFL, and they'll figure out a way to play through this. Now, again, there is indications from the CDC that there's going to be a spike in the coronavirus come September. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think in the end, the NFL will play.
Yeah, because if they go as is, they can do it. But if they say, okay, we're going to do 2 separate hubs, maybe do one AFC, one NFC, they'll have to change the entire schedule.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, this is an unprecedented year. Yeah. This is real times, and every sport is adjusting. I mean, think about it with golf. I mean, I was watching some of the Travelers Championship today, and there's no fans. So if a guy makes a long birdie, you don't hear clapping, you don't hear a roar of any kind. It's just going to be, interesting to see what happens post-coronavirus. But I do think at the end, I think the NFL will play. Yeah.
Definitely. What are your thoughts on college? Because that's the one from the start I've been like.
Well, here's the tricky part with college. You have to think about it this way. Yeah. It's not going to be just student athletes. Yeah. It depends on if schools let students back on campus. And if they do, then that's a good indication that football will be back for the fall. Now they could push it to January. I've heard things of that nature, that there's the potential to move it back. But I think right now for the next month or two, I think it's a wait and see. Now it's good that there's voluntary workouts coming up in July and in August for programs, but there's still a lot of kinks to work out. And that's the biggest question hovering over this entire pandemic, is whether or not students of the specific college are going to be let on campus. If that does happen, we'll have college football.
Yeah, I know for the Maryland schools, just for academics wise, I know they're going to be letting kids back in. I think they're going to do smaller classes. They're going to kind of space them out. But I know for the dorms, they're turning like the quads into doubles. So they're trying to cut back on down with that. But for guys that you see like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, this is the type of like year where you're looking at the NFL and maybe it's like not worth it. I think that's soon to be coming with some of these big name guys and be like, you know what, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think if there's not a full season, they're not going to jump to the draft. I think with Trevor Lawrence, there's so much upside and potential with him to be the number one pick. We've talked about that, but I think these guys want another year to prove it. And if they do, that's another wait and see type of game. But it's got to depend on how many games there are going to be. Is it going to be a full season? Is it going to be a shortened season? Is it going to be played on neutral sites inside a dome? There's still too many questions without answers. And until that happens, we're just going to have to be patient, as we have been for the last couple of months.
Are there any sports going on overseas that in the off chance that some of the American sports can't get back as soon as possible, that you're like, you know what, I'm all in on that?
Not really. No. I mean, I think with soccer being back in action with no fans, I think that's a good start. Golf and NASCAR and boxing, I think those are also good indications that we're getting there. But it's so hard to predict what's going to happen. It's such an up in the air situation at this point. I think there's got to be a gradual plan put into place, and there's no need to rush this whole process. And I think all these sports have kind of indicated that it's not going to be a rush. I mean, we've seen the NBA with the restart in July, and then Major League Baseball coming back. I think July 24th is their opening day, and after that, I think it's a trial by error process until we get back to some kind of normalcy. I do think, Zach, that it's going to be a situation where you're going to have to live with the virus.
Yeah.
And whether or not there's a vaccine or not, I think no fans I can understand. But at some point, I think next year we'll get back to some kind of normal.
Yeah, because in the beginning, you're like, all right, wait, no, sports going on. But first, it's like, okay, it's just the Ivy League schools. They're not going to play. We don't need to watch them anyway. We're like, but I kind of want to watch that Princeton-Columbia game. No, that's not going to happen. Then the tournament goes, NBA goes, NHL, everything goes. And people are like, how are we going to live without sports? And then for the first few weeks, the days were long. It was literally like, all right, we have conversation topics left and right, or we've got the documentaries coming up. And then now it's kind of like just like the new normal. That people are like, oh, we'll wait for sports, but we don't know what's going to come back. And I think it's going to be a rush. I was watching New Zealand rugby last week with fans in it, and I'm like, this is incredible. This is electric, but it's also 1:30 in the morning, and that's pretty late. So I think that's another thing is if a league can come back that's in a kind of reasonable time zone that's not too late for people here to watch, I think it'll catch some traction. But if stuff's going on, like Adam Jones is going up to the bat and Japan, that's on late. So I don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, KBO with ESPN broadcasting it has been a kind of a nice distraction. I think when we had The Last Dance, all 10 episodes, that was a good distraction. And I think the 30 for 30s, everybody's enjoyed that. So ESPN, in my opinion, has done a fantastic job of kind of distracting the viewer. And if you watch SportsCenter, there's a lot going on with, the NBA and Major League Baseball. But I do think at the end of the day, once we get back to some sense of normalcy, I think we'll be in a better shape. But, it's been tough. I mean, 3 months without real sports, live sports, that is, has been, tough. I mean, I think everyone took for granted how important and vital sports was to people's personal lives and culturally as well. So we'll get there. It's going to take a long time.
I've been waiting for Amazon to start selling Wyverns gear online. I haven't seen it yet, so I've been checking for that. So, I'm like, these guys are electric. I'm like, and then they put the dummies out in the stands. I'm like, this is fantastic. It's late though, so but this has been awesome. But so I got one last question. So when everything's back to normal, or what's the first thing, non-sports wise, what's the first thing you're looking back forward to doing that's just kind of just something part of your normal daily life?
You know what? That's a good question. I mean, I've been so focused on work at home and house projects, and I think once we get through this coronavirus, my wife and I are expecting our first child come September. So I think all the focus is on that and how our lives are going to change in just a couple of months. We're fortunate and blessed to be expecting a baby girl, our first one.
Cool.
So
Congratulations.
thank you, man. So yeah, so that's going to take up primarily a lot of my my personal time once it happens.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. I'm glad everybody's doing well, and this has been great. And for people that don't follow you, how can they find you on social media?
Yeah, both on Instagram and on Twitter at ESPN Brick, and then I'm on Facebook as well. And I urge people to follow me both on those and on Facebook. And I'm just excited once sports is back in the mix. Just to get in the studio and talk with my analysts and get kind of some normal routines going. I'm really looking forward to that.
I was watching horseshoes the other day, and I'm like, all right, we need something real. So
cornhole championship.
I like
man.
the cornhole. Cornhole's not bad. And then
that's what I'm talking about.
They're fantastic. These guys are like, are they gonna get all 3 bags? They're gonna get all 3 bags. I'm like, these guys are electric. No, but it's gonna. And then this year, I don't think people realize it's not hit people yet. We're not gonna see Joey Chestnut next week.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, think about when the golf majors are going to happen. The Triple Crown is reversed. There's no New York Marathon or Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
It's crazy times we live in, man. Crazy times.
The Belmont Stakes is today. I'm like, when?
I'm thinking to myself, isn't that the 3rd leg of the Triple Crown?
Yeah. I wonder if they could do the hot tubing contest on Zoom. It'd probably be very
that would be funny. I would watch that.
It'd be
on
interesting.
Zoom.
Yeah, but I don't know how they would make sure people are telling the truth, but it'd be wild. But this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for chatting for a few minutes. I'm glad everybody's doing well, and congratulations on your daughter coming soon. It's an exciting time.
Thanks, Zach. Anytime, man. Great talking to you.
Appreciate it.